The room grew quiet when Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett approached the MIC. Her emerald green suit offered a stark contrast against the dark wood background of the congressional hearing setting. Cameras flashed rapidly, capturing the focused intensity in her eyes as she confronted Pam Bondi across the polished table. Just moments earlier, Bondi had been confidently dismissing accusations concerning misallocated funds. Maintaining her voice was steady as she labeled the inquiry a political witch hunt. Yet, Crockett hadn't arrived unprepared. She tightly held a sealed manila envelope, its corners crisp and official-looking. "Miss Bondi," Crockett began, her voice slicing through the stillness. "You've been sitting here advocating for transparency while concealing a $500 million secret from the American people. That stops today." The chamber erupted. Committee members shifted restlessly. Reporters typed furiously on their phones. Bondi's face, initially calm and self-assured, briefly showed a flash of sheer panic before she quickly resumed her practiced smile. She had no idea what Crockett had discovered, but whatever was inside that envelope made her grip the edge of the table until her knuckles turned white. This was more than just another congressional hearing, it was on the verge of becoming the political clash of the year. And in the minutes that followed, Pam Bondi's meticulously constructed public image would utterly collapse on live national television. Before diving into this explosive narrative, remember to hit the like button and subscribe to Clash Radar for more crucial political reporting you won't find elsewhere. Pam Bondi's reputation preceded her in Washington circles. The former Florida Attorney General had built her career by projecting an image of unwavering integrity. Her blonde hair was consistently flawless, her designer clothes impeccable, and her voice commanded attention in any space. After serving as Florida's first female Attorney General for 8 years, she transitioned smoothly onto the national stage, becoming a trusted advisor to influential figures and a frequent guest on major news programs. Bondi had mastered the skill of political survival, navigating minor controversies with controlled damage management. Whenever questions arose about campaign donations or lobbying affiliations, she consistently dodged them with rehearsed talking points about her commitment to public service. Her supporters saw her as a tough-on-crime conservative icon who spoke the unvarnished truth. Her detractors viewed a calculating political operator who shielded powerful interests. On the other side of the hearing room sat her unexpected adversary, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas. At 42, Crockett represented a newer generation of legislators. The former civil rights attorney gained national attention after a moment defending voting rights went viral. Unlike Bondi's carefully managed image, Crockett was known for her directness and authenticity. Her questioning during congressional sessions regularly made headlines for cutting through political euphemisms. "Is Crockett just playing political games?" Bondi had told reporters outside the Capitol that morning. "This committee was formed with a clear intention to target conservatives, and I'm simply their latest victim." She had smiled confidently for the cameras, dismissing inquiries about alleged financial misdeeds, but behind the scenes, tensions were running high. The hearing had been called following whistleblower reports that raised serious questions about a $500 million government contract awarded to Gulfream Solutions, a company with suspected connections to Bondi during her tenure as Attorney General. The committee had been investigating for months, but concrete evidence had been elusive until now. For Crockett, this wasn't mere political spectacle. As she would later explain, when $500 million taxpayer dollars vanish into the pockets of friends, that's not a partisan issue. That's corruption, plain and simple. The stakes were immense. If Crockett's accusations proved accurate, it wouldn't just terminate Bondi's career, it could trigger one of the largest corruption probes in recent political memory, potentially involving officials across multiple states. For Bondi, everything she had meticulously built over decades of political maneuvering rested on the outcome of the next few hours. The committee chairman, Congressman Hayes, brought the room to order. "This hearing will come to order. We are here today to continue our inquiry into the award of the Gulfream Solutions contract and related matters." He then addressed Crockett. "Congresswoman Crockett, you have 10 minutes for questioning." As Crockett opened the manila envelope, the room fell completely silent. Bondi shifted slightly, maintaining her composed facade, but those nearby noticed a slight tremor in her hand as she reached for her water glass. No one realized they were about to witness a moment that would be replayed endlessly on news channels for weeks. "Miss Bondi," Crockett began, her voice measured but firm. "I'd like to begin by establishing certain facts." She placed a document on the overhead projector showing a timeline of the Gulfstream Solutions contract approval. "You have previously testified that you had no involvement with Gulfstream before, during, or after this $500 million contract was approved. Is that accurate?" Bondi leaned toward her microphone. "That is correct, Congresswoman. As I have stated repeatedly, I had no personal or professional relationship with Gulfstream or its executives." Crockett nodded, seemingly accepting the answer. "And you have also testified that you have never personally benefited from any state contracts awarded while you served as Florida Attorney General." "Correct." "Absolutely correct," Bondi replied, a trace of annoyance entering her voice. "I have dedicated my career to public service, not personal gain." The tension remained high as Crockett systematically established the foundation, displaying public records detailing the contract approval process. Committee members watched with varying levels of interest. Democrats leaned forward, attentive. Republicans glanced at their watches or rustled papers, seemingly convinced this was just another political display. Then came the first unexpected turn. "I would like to enter Exhibit 43 into the record," Crockett announced, sliding a document to the chairman. "This is an email from Gulfstream CEO Richard Thornton to his board of directors, dated 3 weeks prior to the contract announcement." As the email appeared on screens around the room, Bondi's expression flickered. The message referred to a special arrangement with our Florida friend that would guarantee the contract approval went smoothly. "Miss Bondi, are you that Florida friend mentioned in this email?" Crockett asked. Bondi's attorney leaned in to whisper something, but she waved him away. "Congresswoman, I cannot possibly know who Mr. Thornton was referring to in a private email I was not a party to. There are thousands of people in Florida government." Crockett didn't press, simply nodding. "Fair enough. Let's move on." She displayed another document, a calendar entry showing a lunch meeting between Bondi and Thornton 6 months before the contract was awarded. "Can you explain this meeting that you stated never took place?" The room stirred. Bondi's practiced composure momentarily faltered before she recovered. "I have hundreds of meetings every year. This was a routine lunch with various business leaders discussing Florida's economic condition. Nothing specific about Gulfstream was discussed." Republican committee members quickly moved to Bondi's defense. Congressman Miller interjected, "Point of order, Mr. Chairman. The Congresswoman is harassing the witness with circumstantial evidence that proves nothing. I am simply asking Miss Bondi to reconcile her statements with documented evidence," Crockett responded calmly. The chairman permitted her to continue, and Crockett methodically introduced more pieces of the puzzle. Phone records showed communication between Bondi's office and Gulfstream. Meeting notes referenced AG approval. And a series of contract amendments had circumvented normal review procedures. With each new document, the atmosphere in the room changed. What began as seemingly isolated facts was forming a deeply troubling pattern. Even Republican members were now paying close attention, some looking uncomfortable. "Miss Bondi," Crockett continued, "I find it noteworthy that you characterized this investigation as a witch hunt. Yet, these documents, all obtained through official channels, reveal a disturbing pattern of communication and coordination that directly contradicts your sworn testimony." Bondi's attorney urgently whispered in her ear. She took a drink of water, her hand now visibly shaking. "Congresswoman, you are presenting selected information out of context. I stand by my testimony." Then came the moment that caused the first genuine crack in Bondi's demeanor. Crockett revealed bank records showing a series of offshore transactions connecting a subsidiary of Gulfstream to a company named Blue Harbor Consulting. "Miss Bondi, are you familiar with Blue Harbor Consulting?" For the first time, Bondi paused before replying. "I do not believe so." "No." Crockett let the silence hang briefly before responding. "That is intriguing, because according to Florida corporate records, Blue Harbor Consulting was registered by your sister, Jennifer, 1 month before the Gulfstream contract discussions began. Cameras flashed intensely as Bondi's face turned scarlet. My sister conducts her own business affairs. I am not involved in her professional life. So, you are stating under oath that you had no knowledge that your sister established a company that subsequently received $145 million from a Gulfstream subsidiary after you helped approve their $500 million contract? Crockett asked, her voice steady. The room erupted. The chairman banged his gavel repeatedly, demanding order. Bondi's attorney requested a recess, which the chairman granted. As they rose to leave, reporters shouted questions, and committee members huddled with their staff. Bondi, clearly shaken, was escorted out by her legal team. The confidence from her morning press conference had utterly vanished. As the doors closed behind her, the cameras captured a final look at her face, no longer the composed political operator, but someone realizing that her carefully constructed world was starting to disintegrate, and Congresswoman Crockett had made it clear she was far from finished. When the hearing resumed following a 30-minute break, the energy in the room was entirely transformed. The gallery was now filled with journalists who had rushed over from covering other events after news of the explosive revelation spread. Social media was already inundated with clips of Bondi's visibly shaken reactions. Pam Bondi returned with an expanded legal team. Her hair and makeup had been refreshed, but the confident smile was gone, replaced by a tight-lipped determination, the look of someone preparing for a battle, not a routine inquiry. Congresswoman Crockett, meanwhile, appeared completely calm as she arranged a new set of documents before her. The chairman reminded everyone that she still had 4 minutes remaining for questioning. Miss Bondi, Crockett began, during the break, my staff provided your counsel with copies of what I am about to present, so nothing should be a surprise. She glanced at Bondi's grim-looking attorneys. Let us pick up where we left off. The screens displayed a complex chart illustrating money transfers between multiple entities, from Gulfstream to its subsidiary, to Blue Harbor Consulting, then to several other shell companies, and finally to a Cayman Islands account. For the committee's benefit, Crockett explained, I have spent the last 6 months collaborating with forensic accountants to trace the funds from the Gulfstream contract. What we uncovered was a sophisticated network designed to conceal the ultimate recipients of these funds. She then turned to Bondi. Miss Bondi, are you familiar with Seaside Holdings Limited in the Cayman Islands? Bondi consulted with her attorneys before answering. On advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based on my Fifth Amendment privilege. A murmur rippled through the room. Invoking the Fifth Amendment was her constitutional right but was politically devastating. Crockett simply nodded and proceeded. Let me be very clear about what our investigation has revealed, she said, addressing the entire committee. Of the $500 million awarded to Gulfstream Solutions, approximately $42 million was rerouted through this network of shell companies. Through banking records obtained via subpoena, and with the cooperation of authorities in the Cayman Islands, we have confirmed that Seaside Holdings is beneficially owned by a trust that names Pam Bondi as the primary beneficiary. The room erupted again. Cameras flashed widely as reporters scrambled to update their stories. Bondi's lead attorney stood to object, but Crockett pressed on. Mr. Chairman, I am entering into the record Exhibit 72, a series of emails recovered from Richard Thornton's personal account pursuant to our committee subpoena. The emails appeared on screen, and the gallery audibly gasped. The messages, dated throughout the contract negotiation period, were direct exchanges between Thornton and Bondi discussing how to structure the deal to ensure our mutual benefits and maintain necessary distance. In one particularly incriminating email, Bondi had written, the Seaside arrangement works. My team will never connect those dots as long as we keep Jennifer's role quiet. Miss Bondi, Crockett said, her voice now carrying an edge of controlled fury. These emails directly contradict every statement you have made to this committee. They demonstrate that you personally orchestrated a plan to divert $42 million of taxpayer money to your own personal benefit. Would you like to amend your previous testimony? Bondi's composure finally shattered completely. Her hands trembled as she reached for her water glass again, spilling it across her prepared remarks. Her attorney frantically tried to mop up the spreading liquid with tissues while whispering urgently to her. I need a moment, Bondi stammered, her voice barely audible. But Crockett pushed forward relentlessly. While Miss Bondi collects herself, she said, "I want to be clear about the seriousness of what we are witnessing. This is not a technical violation or an oversight. This is deliberate fraud against American taxpayers, a public servant elected to uphold the law instead manipulating it for personal gain." Crockett turned directly to face Bondi. "And Miss Bondi, we haven't even gotten to the offshore properties yet." At this, Bondi's self-control completely broke. Tears welled in her eyes. Her breathing became rapid and shallow. "You don't understand," she said, her voice cracking. "There were circumstances. There were pressures. I never intended for it to progress this far." The chairman, recognizing the dramatic shift, attempted to restore order. "Miss Bondi, are you well enough to proceed? Do you require a break?" Before she could answer, Crockett delivered the final blow. "Mr. Chairman, I have one last exhibit." She motioned to an aide who wheeled in a large poster board covered by a cloth. "This morning, Miss Bondi called our investigation a witch hunt. She claimed we were pursuing her for political reasons." Crockett pulled away the cloth to reveal an enlarged photograph of a luxury villa on a tropical beach. "This is the $12 million property in the Turks and Caicos purchased by Seaside Holdings 3 months after the Gulfream contract was finalized. Miss Bondi has spent 6 vacation weeks there in the past year alone." She then turned to face Bondi directly. "This is not about politics. This is about corruption, pure and simple." Bondi's face crumpled completely under the glare of the cameras. The composed, powerful former Attorney General broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. "I can explain," she managed between gasps, but no explanation followed. Her lead attorney stood. "Mr. Chairman, my client is clearly distressed. We request an immediate recess." The chairman agreed, but the damage was irreversible. As Bondi was led from the room by her legal team, her mascara smeared down her cheeks, her shoulders slumped in defeat. The cameras recorded every second of her collapse. Congresswoman Crockett remained seated, calm but determined, the documents from her months-long investigation spread before her. In less than an hour, she had methodically dismantled one of the most influential women in American politics. As the committee room emptied for recess, journalists rushed to file their stories, and committee members engaged in hushed, shocked discussions. Crockett simply gathered her papers, preparing for the next stage. The exposure was complete, but the consequences were only beginning. Within minutes of Bondi's public breakdown, video snippets spread across social media with incredible speed. #Bondi breakdown and #Crockett exposure became the top trending hashtags nationwide. News networks interrupted regular programming to show the dramatic confrontation repeatedly, with analysts scrambling to make sense of the significance of what had just occurred. The hearing never officially resumed. Following a closed-door meeting between Bondi's legal team and committee leadership, an announcement was made that Bondi had been transported to a local medical facility for observation. Her spokesperson released a brief statement citing exhaustion and dehydration, but few were convinced. By evening, all major networks were leading with the story. Breaking, former AG Pam Bondi implicated in $42 million corruption scheme flashed across screens nationally. Political commentators from all sides struggled to process the sheer scale of the revelations. What we witnessed today wasn't merely the fall of Pam Bondi, veteran political analyst Robert Chin said on CNN. This could signal the start of the largest public corruption investigation since Watergate. The ramifications are enormous. Congresswoman Crockett held a brief press conference on the Capitol steps as the sun began to set. The warm golden light contrasted sharply with the cold facts she had laid bare. "Today was not a triumph for me or for any political party," she told the gathered reporters. "If anything, it is a sad day for American democracy, but it is also a necessary one. The American people deserve to know when their trust has been violated." When asked how she had managed to uncover the complex financial trail, Crockett detailed the painstaking process that culminated in this moment. This investigation began with a single whistleblower, a mid-level accountant at Gulfream, who noticed anomalies in the contract payments. "My team followed every lead, reviewed thousands of documents, and worked nights and weekends for 6 months. We encountered obstacles at every turn. Subpoenas were challenged, records were accidentally deleted, and witnesses were pressured to stay silent. She paused before adding, and I must point out that this investigation is not over. The money trail suggests that Miss Bondi was not operating alone. That statement sent another shockwave through Washington. Speculation about who else might be involved ran wild, but Crockett refused to name names, stating, "Only the evidence will guide us where we need to go." By the following morning, the Justice Department announced the formation of a special task force to investigate the Gulfstream contract and related matters. The FBI executed search warrants at Bondi's residences in Florida and Washington, as well as the offices of Gulfstream Solutions and several related companies. Richard Thornton, the CEO of Gulfstream, was apprehended at Miami International Airport while attempting to board a flight to Venezuela. His attorney released a statement indicating that Thornton was cooperating fully with authorities and was prepared to provide testimony regarding Miss Bondi's role in orchestrating the scheme. Bondi herself remained out of public sight for 3 days before releasing a video statement from an undisclosed location. The polished politician was gone. The woman on screen looked exhausted, her face gaunt, her voice hollow. "I want to apologize to the people of Florida and to all Americans," she began, reading from a prepared statement. "While there are aspects of Congresswoman Crockett's allegations that have been mischaracterized, I cannot and will not deny that I failed to uphold the ethical standards that public service demands." She stopped short of admitting criminal wrongdoing but announced her resignation from all public and private positions, citing the need to focus on personal matters and mounting legal challenges. The political fallout extended far beyond Bondi. As Crockett had suggested, the investigation rapidly expanded to include other officials. Within 2 weeks, subpoenas were issued to 3 former state officials in Florida who had served on the Contract Approval Board, 2 federal regulators who had fast-tracked necessary permits, and a senior congressional staffer who had helped secure the federal funding. The case also shone a spotlight on Congresswoman Crockett, propelling her into the national limelight. Profile pieces highlighted her background as a civil rights attorney before entering politics, her methodical approach to the investigation, and her reputation for working across the aisle when principles were at stake. "Jasmine Crockett represents something increasingly rare in American politics," wrote the Washington Post editorial board. She pursued this investigation not because Bondi was a political rival, but because corruption is corruption, regardless of party affiliation. Her strategy was not to grandstand, but to meticulously construct an irrefutable case. Social media transformed Crockett into an overnight sensation. Clips of her precise questioning garnered hundreds of millions of views. Young people particularly embraced her, with TikTok flooded with remixes of her most damaging lines set to dramatic music. A Gallup poll conducted 1 week after the hearing indicated that 76% of Americans, including 62% of Republicans, approved of how Crockett had handled the investigation. Public trust in Congress, typically very low, saw a modest but notable increase, suggesting Americans appreciated seeing a legislator engaged in genuine oversight rather than partisan theatrics. The financial consequences were equally significant. Trading of Gulfstream's parent company stock was temporarily halted after it lost 43% of its value in 2 days. The company's board fired its entire executive team and hired external counsel to conduct an internal investigation, desperately attempting to distance itself from the scandal. State officials in Florida announced a comprehensive review of all contracts approved during Bondi's term, vowing to implement new transparency measures and ethical safeguards. The state controller estimated that recovering misappropriated funds could eventually restore hundreds of millions to state accounts. Perhaps most significantly, the scandal transcended typical partisan divisions. While conservative media initially tried to frame the investigation as a political assault, the evidence Crockett presented was too overwhelming to dismiss. Even Bondi's strongest supporters couldn't defend the luxury villa purchased with diverted taxpayer funds, one commentator noted. "What we are observing is rare in today's polarized climate," explained political scientist Dr. Maya Williams. "A corruption scandal so unambiguous that it is uniting Americans in shared outrage rather than dividing them along partisan lines. People across the political spectrum recognize that $42 million in taxpayer money rerouted to private offshore accounts is indefensible, regardless of party loyalty. 6 weeks after the hearing, Congresswoman Crockett addressed a packed auditorium at Georgetown University's School of Public Policy. Students and faculty gave her a standing ovation before she even uttered a word. The Bondi investigation proves something essential about democracy, she told the audience. It is fragile. It demands constant vigilance, but it also possesses built-in mechanisms for correction when we have the courage to employ them. She continued, many have asked me why I pursued this investigation when conventional wisdom suggested Pam Bondi was too powerful to challenge. The answer is straightforward, no one should be above accountability. Not me, not you, and certainly not those entrusted with public power. As Crockett's words circulated through news coverage and social media, they resonated with a public craving authentic leadership. Her approval ratings skyrocketed, leading to widespread speculation about her future political trajectory. Would she seek higher office or a committee chair position? Crockett herself dismissed such questions, insisting her focus remained on completing the investigation and ensuring appropriate consequences. For Pam Bondi, those consequences were immediate and severe. A federal grand jury indicted her on 22 counts, including wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, and tax evasion. If convicted on all charges, she faced up to 30 years in prison. Her legal team immediately began negotiating with prosecutors, suggesting she might be willing to implicate others in exchange for leniency. The scandal continued to broaden, affecting multiple states and government levels. Journalists dubbed it Gulfreamgate, with new revelations surfacing weekly. Every new connection exposed reinforced the core message of Crockett's investigation: corruption thrives in darkness but withers under scrutiny. 3 months after the hearing, a comprehensive ethics reform bill titled the Public Trust Restoration Act was introduced in Congress with bipartisan sponsorship. The legislation, which directly addressed many of the loopholes exploited in the Gulfstream scheme, quickly gained support. Sometimes it takes a shock to the system to bring about meaningful change, said the bill's Republican co-sponsor at a joint press conference with Crockett. What occurred with the Gulfstream contract was a betrayal of public trust that transcends political divisions. This legislation represents a first step toward rebuilding that trust. As the investigations, indictments, and reforms continue to unfold, the dramatic confrontation between Congresswoman Crockett and Pam Bondi became more than just a viral political moment. It became a case study in effective oversight, a reminder of the strength of persistent investigation, and a rare demonstration of accountability. In an era often defined by its absence, the American public, so accustomed to political figures evading consequences, witnessed something they had nearly forgotten was possible: a powerful individual held accountable in real time, not through partisan attacks or media sensationalism, but through the methodical presentation of documented facts. For Jasmine Crockett, who entered the hearing room as a relatively unknown congresswoman and emerged as a symbol of governmental integrity, the work persisted. There were more documents to examine, more witnesses to question, more connections to uncover. The $500 million secret she had exposed was likely just the beginning. And for citizens observing from home, the message was unmistakable: in a functioning democracy, no secret stays hidden indefinitely. No power remains unchecked forever. And sometimes, just sometimes, justice is served live on camera for all to witness. Thank you for tuning into this incredible story. If you found this breakdown valuable, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel, Clash Radar. Hit that notification bell to stay informed about all our political analysis and breaking news coverage. The fight for transparency and accountability continues, and we'll be here to bring you every development as it happens.